If you run a company or manage a team, hiring qualified people quickly can make or break your business. Imagine a position of need going unfilled for weeks or even months because you just can't seem to find the right candidate. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. Indeed sponsored jobs help you stand out and hire fast. With sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates so you can reach the people you want faster. This makes a huge difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Plus, there's no monthly subscriptions, no long-term contracts. You only pay for results on your job post. Just in the last minute that I've been talking to you, 23 hires were made on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. Now that is fast. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. Listeners will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/BWN. Go to Indeed.com/BWN right now to support this podcast. Indeed.com/BWN. Terms and conditions apply.
Hello, Mavs fans. Welcome to Pod Maverick After Dark. I'm Kirk Henderson, joined by Josh Bowe. It's been a while since he and I have been on the same screen together. How you doing, Josh?
Doing okay. We're back from the All-Star break. I don't know. I'm trying to think about how honest I want to be about how I feel about being back about the All-Star break. But we're here and we have a game to
We don't
got to
go to work tomorrow. I mean, at least it's not
That's
like
nice.
the first game back
nice.
is not like a late game on a Tuesday where we got to, start recording at 10 o'clock at night. So it's about 10 o'clock at night here on Friday, November 21st. The Dallas Mavericks just beat the New Orleans Pelicans for the third time this season in their 4-game matchup, 111-103. For a post All-Star game break, like a first game back, it was a pretty entertaining game. Kyrie Irving finished with 35 points, played 37 minutes, which was, I think, pretty important considering he had been averaging close to 42 minutes a game for the month of February. Starting to get a little concerning there. Mavericks playing the Pelicans, who are just one of the weirdest collections of players on earth. Zion Williamson was a world eater for most of the game, only to absolutely wither on the vine in the fourth quarter. I'm trying to think about, one of the things Josh and I've talked about the last probably 2.5 weeks, because it's been a while since we've recorded together, is part of the challenge about talking about this Mavericks team is this Mavericks team has nothing to do with the Mavericks team that Nico Harrison and Jason Kidd envisioned playing together. So we're sort of the games are fun. The wins are actually quite nice and gritty, but taking away a big picture takeaway past, all right, that's a fun win, is a little bit of a reach. I suppose we could continue to talk about like Max Christie until the end of time because he rules. But what else should we talk about here, man?
I don't know, because it's a pretty easy game to talk about. The Mavericks made threes and the Pelicans didn't. Like,
that's really that easy?
Yeah. Look, I mean, you look at almost everything that happened in this game, and the two teams were pretty even. The only two things that weren't even were points in the paint, where the Pelicans had a 20-point advantage. But that doesn't matter when you make 8 more 3-pointers than your opponent. And And that was the game. The Mavericks didn't shoot particularly well otherwise from the floor. They had a decent amount of turnovers. Both teams got to the free throw line about the same amount of times. The Mavericks rebounded worse than the Pelicans, which is understandable considering they're not really playing any big men right now. So it was really just the Mavericks made 8 more 3-pointers than the Pelicans. I mean,
Yeah.
like that. I hate to be that reductive about a game, and there's certainly more we can talk about, like how they doubled Zion in the fourth quarter and how well that worked. How Max Christie apparently can't stop making mid-range twos, which is like really funny because I'll be honest, I didn't know if that was really part of his game coming over from Los Angeles, but yeah, this game kind of starts and dies talking about it, where the Mavericks just made more threes, and that's kind of been what they've been doing since the Luka trade and everyone got hurt. But they've won five out of their last 6 games, I believe, and they're shooting like 42% from 3 as a team in those wins. So they're playing small ball, which is kind of what you talked about. This is not the team that they wanted. We're gonna see presumably in April. They're gonna play 2 bigs. They're gonna play Gafford and Lively with Anthony Davis, but now they're playing 5 out, small ball, drive and kick, space the floor, make more threes than your opponent and win. That's kind of what they're doing.
Well, it's funny, like you look at the box score, and again, we always try not to read too much into certain numbers, particularly plus minus. Sometimes it isn't particularly fair, but you look at the Pelicans, like plus minus with certain guys, and 2 guys just got destroyed when they were on the floor. The first was Bruce Brown, who was a negative 20 in 22 minutes, which is Dwight Powellian, if I've ever seen a figure like that. And then Jordan Hawkins, who's their off the bench gunner, who was just 1 of 7 from the floor, 1 of 3 from 3-point range. And his job is to make shots. And there was a stretch that sort of stood out in my mind. It was in the closing minutes of the third quarter. The Mavericks ended up like coming out ahead 86-82 after 3 quarters. But in the final like 4 minutes of that quarter, the pace of the game really picked up, where both teams were sort of trading long distance shots and like getting to the basket, and the Pelicans had pulled it. Let me see if I can go find this in the play-by-play, because I remember like watching it and being like, oh man, this is maddening. So it's like the Mavericks they go up by 7 points with 2 minutes and 36 seconds left on a Kyrie Irving jumper, and I'm like, all right, okay, the Mavericks are going to pull ahead here. They're going to pull ahead. It's going to be fine. Then then all of a sudden, Trey Murphy dunks the ball with 1 minute and 20 seconds, like just a driving, like it's like, I don't even know how they gave that dunk up. And then the very next possession, because PJ misses a 3, Jordan Hawkins makes his 1-3. It goes from being a 7-point game to a 2-point game in 1 minute and 20 seconds, because the game was just kind of out of control. The Mavericks ended up settling some things, but Hawkins missed another wide open jumper right before the end of the quarter. And it was just sort of emblematic of the way the game went for the Pelicans, where they would make a push and sort of encroach on the Mavericks, only for the Mavericks to punch them in the mouth just hard enough to kind of keep them at bay. And that was the way the fourth quarter went too, where it's like the Pelicans make 2 more 3-pointers in this game. The feel of the game is very different because of those points in the paint, with Zion kind of kicking the shit out of the Mavericks.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess Zion is just like on a permanent minutes restriction or something. He didn't even
awful
play
in the final 6 minutes of the fourth quarter. He was awful.
Yeah, I mean, and I'll be honest, I don't know how he could have been effective with, he sat for so long. I mean, he only played 27 minutes, which is just weird. Like, I'm guessing that's got to be some minutes health thing, because he can't stay on the floor. So that's got to be some training staff directed thing, especially since their season is over. They're just probably not pushing him. But I mean, there was a stretch there where I think he had like 25 points in 18 minutes, and then he finishes 29 points in 27 minutes. And it's like, what happened? And it's like,
he stops attacking effectively.
Yeah.
I remember where it got, because David and I were on the playback, and he has these ISO drives, and he missed the first one and then proceeded to just give it up after that. And it's just like watching a guy run out of gas is so it's very disconcerting because when you watch him play, and I know obviously we're a Mavericks podcast, but I think like Zion dying on the vine is why the Mavericks were able to win this game in a big way.
They also don't run anything for him. Like they just give him the ball and clear out, and it's like maybe set some screens or do something, but they really just kind of. I mean, maybe it's because again their season is kind of over, but it really just felt like a lot of just give him the ball and he'll figure it out, and have 4 guys stand around and watch him, which was kind of crazy. Like I was like, well, set a screen for the dude, or let him set a screen or do something.
Do you remember? Well, and B-Boys 89 is saying, the 29 points or 27 points in 29 minutes, but at one point he had 25 points in 18 minutes. So he scored 2 points over the final. So he just sort of stops. And I will never forget it was when the Mavericks were in the white uniforms, those weird white and gold uniforms, I think, where KP and Luka each had to score over 40 points each against the Pelicans. And Zion was just taking Maxi's lunch money over and over. Do you remember this game at all?
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that game.
And I just remember thinking, oh my God, this guy's going to be like it took 80 points plus for Luka and KP for the Mavericks to win this game. And then he's been a different player. Yeah, that was, there was a lot of good takeaways from this game that I don't really think apply to anything else. It was really great to see PJ come back from pretty lengthy absence with that ankle sprain. 24 points, 7 boards, 3 assists, 2 steals, a block, just a little bit of everything. He's going to be a great addition to the Kevin Durant trade package this summer.
That's mean. You're so mean.
I what's funny because when the Mavericks traded for PJ, I was very skeptical. You were not. You were in on PJ from the summer before. You were like kind of the early adopter. Okay. Yeah. And it was really something. It's been really something to watch PJ's game just slowly open up and do different things. He's a fun basketball player.
Yeah. I love when they get him going toward the rim. He had 8 free throw attempts tonight. Had some good shots in the paint. He basically kind of had to play center. I don't know if he was technically playing center, but they started again a no center lineup with him and Kessler Edwards. So, yeah, it's fun to watch him go, and it's good to see him. He hasn't played a ton of games because he got hurt in that game against Houston, which was I think only the second or third game, maybe the second game he had played since Luka got traded. And the one thing you wonder about these guys is how are they going to play without Luka? And PJ is one of those guys certainly where I'm like, okay, let's kind of see how he reacts, because he's certainly one of those players that, not saying he needs Luka to be an effective NBA, effective contributor, because his defense has been all world since he's gotten to Dallas. But I was just curious how his offense would look, especially his shooting. And, he's been making his threes okay. 3 of 8 isn't amazing, but it's not bad. And he's still getting looks. They really do a good job, like getting him curling off screens and curling like off a back screen and going off the elbow up the paint and hitting him there for his little floaters and push shots in the paint. Did that a couple times tonight. He's a good post-up player. He didn't get a lot of opportunities to post up tonight because the Pelicans played.
They started early though.
A bigger man. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, he did great.
PJ's a fun guy for me because I don't necessarily think I was like out on him or anything, but I remember feeling skeptical, and the fact that he's just been pretty important makes me wonder how they're going to fit if, like, let's just say by happenstance, Anthony Davis comes back, which I'm just currently skeptical on, but that's fine. But let's say that the Anthony Davis and Derek Lively both make it back in 3 weeks. So like mid-March. PJ has to slide down to 3, and how he plays as a 3 is interesting. Like there's some, kid has some options, and I'm going to be curious to see how they all work out.
Yeah. It's just funny because we're not going to see that till they come back. And it's clear, like the offense has been fine since Luka's been gone for the most part. They're shooting the ball really well. And and it's partly because they're not playing any big men, so they're playing 5 out. The floor is spaced, and they've got this really good drive and kick game going with Kyrie and whoever the second guard is, and that's just not how they're going to play when they go back to 2 bigs.
Glad
so
you
it's
did
really
this.
funny.
I'm glad you did this because I want to talk about this. We've not had a chance to talk about this because because of my car accident and then illness and everything, we've not really got a chance to. Why can't they continue to play with this space? Anthony Davis can shoot the three. Derek Lively should shoot the three. No, I mean he has the green light to take the three. Like, I know he's not a particularly good statistical 3-point shooter with some stretches, but I think Anthony Davis taking 2 threes a game, like, why not? Why not play wide?
Is that enough to spread the floor enough to where defenses are going to chase him to the 3-point line at the expense of knowing everything else? Like, if you're a defense, you're just going to let him shoot those threes, right? I mean, he's a career 30%, 29.8% 3-point shooter. Like, why would you guard him out there until he starts? Now, if he's taking 2 or 3 threes a game and he's making 40% of them, maybe eventually they start creeping out.
So let's just sort of let me just open gym my way through this. The Mavericks are going to be playing a bunch of tall dudes, with the exception of Kyrie.
Yep.
Do you care if you're missing a bunch of, not a bunch, but like if the Mavericks do crash the offensive glass? Okay, that's one thing. And Mick, just go take a look at Anthony Davis's 3-point shooting in the playoffs in 2020. It is outrageous.
Yeah, he went on a heater for 3 weeks there.
Yes, yeah, and it's weird, and so we got a couple other people in the chat noting this. Like, Anthony Davis can shoot, but if you go look at like his game logs and then his month-to-month splits, his shooting just is like a roller coaster. He's a very interesting offensive player where I think we're gonna want to kill him about 40% of the time, and then other 60%, it's gonna be like, oh, this is a god mode basketball player. Because he's a really, obviously he's responsible for one of the most egregious tanking races in NBA history. Between the Pelicans and the then Charlotte Bobcats. So anyway, I don't know. I want to sort of suss it out because we've not seen Derek Lively do much from beyond the arc because the Mavericks aren't interested in that. I want to see it. I want to see weird shit. Like, if the team is going to be totally overturned in the way that they have been, let's get funky.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they can do stuff. It's just, they're just not going to be a quick floor spacing jump shooting team. They're going to be posting. They're going to do funky stuff by doing post ups. And maybe they screen the center for Anthony Davis and let them do some big pick and rolls.
High-low action. Stuff to like open the Rockets game.
Yeah, exactly. They'll do stuff like that. That's going to be weird and funky. It's just, I don't think it's going to be weird and funky in terms of your big men launching threes. It's just going to be the more how the court geometry is just going to change. They're going to attack inside out instead of outside in. We're
going to have completely new things to complain about.
That's right.
And speaking of completely new things to complain about, if you've not yet gone to the link in the show notes here, it's a company that we've partnered with for a while now called Body Spec. Body Spec does a full body composition scan for a really affordable price. And if you're a person who's looking to get into shape, to see where you are sort of on any sort of fitness journey, I really can't recommend it enough. Josh and I have both had it done. I have 2 weeks left on a 8-week, you could ostensibly call it a weight loss challenge at my gym, but I'm mainly just like eating less and I'm working. I work out all the time. But I was, eating like a 17-year-old still, because who here doesn't like food? It's an interesting company, and I really recommend their product for just about anyone. You get to be in your 30s and 40s, and sometimes you just need a kick in the pants to get things going. And Body Spec and the information that they provide back to you, can really do that. They're all over the Dallas area. They have one physical like brick and mortar building, and then they have mobile stations at gyms. Like you probably walked past them or driven past them and not seen them. You can use our promo code PODMAVS45. It's a direct way to help us if you guys are at all interested. Can't recommend it enough. Now I'm going to insert some podcast ads for anybody listening a little later, and then Josh and I will be right back to finish up the rest of the show.
This season, a new hot deal has arrived at Metro. $25 a line for 4 lines with all the data you need and 4 free Samsung Galaxy A15 5G phones. Getting Metro's best deals is easy. No ID required, no activation fees. Get a new number or keep your own. It's up to you. That's 4 lines for $25 a line, plus 4 free phones. Visit a store or go online today. Only at Metro by T-Mobile.
When you join Metro Plus Tax, for a limited time and subject to change. Max 1 offer per account.
Look around. You can find cars like these on AutoTrader, like that car right in your tail. Or if you're tailgating right now, all those cars doubling as kitchens and living rooms are on AutoTrader too. Are you working out and listening to this ad at the same time? Well, multitasking pro, cars like the ones in the gym parking lot are for sale on AutoTrader. New cars, used cars, electric cars, maybe even flying cars. Okay, no flying cars, but as soon as they get invented, they'll be on AutoTrader. Just you wait. AutoTrader.
All right. I've not done this in a while, but since the Doncic AD trade, we have lost subscribers.
Oh, yeah.
It's not unsurprising. Okay?
No, not at all.
You get a lot of the Slovenian fans, Luka fans. You have a lot of Mavericks fans that have flat out told me they're not really interested in the team anymore. Maybe they'll come back, maybe not. But if you haven't yet subscribed to our show, please go ahead and do me a favor and do so on YouTube. Do it on your podcast app. Leave reviews, leave comments. Very appreciate the people who are sticking with us because Josh and I are still going to be talking about the Dallas Mavericks. Is there anything else related to the game we should talk about?
I wanted to follow up more on what we talked about going into the break before we go back to more stuff in the game. When you're talking about like why can't they play the way they're playing now when everyone's healthy? And I think one thing we can note is they can still play that way. It's just going to be with different lineups, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they can just be a little bit, maybe they're just a little bit more versatile. And that kind of matters in the playoffs, right? Like you don't necessarily want to be one dimensional. So maybe there's going to be a game, maybe it's a play-in game, maybe it's in the first round. I don't know, a high leverage game that they have to win. And maybe they do need to go small for 5 minutes and space the floor. And the fact that they've kind of got this in their bag is hopeful. And I think it goes back to like why we're all so frustrated about the Luka Doncic trade is that this is probably the deepest and most versatile roster that this team has had since 2011, right? I mean, this team can play. I mean, even before the Luka trade, they could play big. They could play big, long, and athletic. They could play defensive-oriented lineups. They could play smaller, offensive-oriented lineups. They have more two-way players than I can remember when, that was such an issue in the early stages of the Doncic era was they just had so many one-way guys. So that's the benefit. That'll be the benefit. So, like, if you want to see them play the way they're playing now and everyone's healthy, it might not be with AD on the floor unless he's playing, as the lone big. Maybe it's just like a gear they can shift to when they need to, depending on game flow.
So the one thing that I'm particularly interested in is I think just due to legacy, due to player reputation, the Mavericks will most likely stick with Clay playing 2 guard. We're going to be calling for his head at a certain point.
He didn't close tonight.
No, but closing, that's true. The closing is part of it, but Max Christie just continues to make a case. It's preposterous.
I'm waiting for him to start missing jump shots, and it just doesn't happen.
Yep.
And it's not just the threes. Like if he the 3 part is like, okay, he's making his threes. Like he was making 38% of his threes or whatever this season in Los Angeles. So it's not that crazy that he's making whatever. Like he's like 40, like he's 45. Like, okay. He came into this game. I looked it up. He's 7 of 14 entering this game on pull-up 2s. Like, I don't understand. Like, I don't, I've watched Max Christie, but I did not watch every,
No.
I watch him when he's on national TV for the most part. And occasionally, some other games when he plays against the Mavs, of course, but like guilty as charged. I did not, do we need to talk to our Lakers friends and be like, hey, what's going on here? Cause these mid-range, like the spot up 3-point shooting is not surprising me. These pull up mid-range twos where he's just taking his man off the dribble, self-creating these 2-point jumpers is like, I had no idea. And I don't know if this is just a streak and he's going to come back down to earth, but he
was 6 of 7 tonight.
I know.
Yeah. I don't know what to make of him, but there's again, reading into plus minus is probably stupid. Okay. It's probably stupid over a single game thing, but over a long enough stretch, it becomes one of these things that's just very difficult to ignore. He finished 32 minutes, team high, plus 24 in those 32 minutes when he's on the floor. I can't find his plus minus since joining the Mavericks, but I could probably look it up.
It's really high.
I'm going to go to B-Ball Reference to look it up, just because I'm curious.
Yeah, but
right. So let me see here. I know this is really great podcasting for anybody listening, but sorry everyone. I mean, he's a third-year player, and he's makes more every game is a little bit more impressive. And all right, so in these games with the Mavericks, he was a -8 against Houston, which Mavericks won. That is a little bit interesting, but I think didn't the Mavericks get up and then they just kind of held on for dear life against the
yep, they did toward the end of the game.
Okay.
I mean, his first game was the Philly game, and he was he was huge in that game.
He was a +1 in that game, but this is so this is the 7th game of the team. 6 out of 7 games he finishes with a positive plus minus, which is just a lot to like about the guy. Where the minutes suss out is going to be interesting. He topped 32 tonight. But again, we keep mentioning how the Mavericks want to play bigger, want to play a certain way. I mean, he is 6'5". He got a massive wingspan. Like the arms just sort of keep surprising me. There's a lot going on there.
Okay. So entering tonight, he was a +32 in 207 minutes in Dallas so far. So add whatever he was to that +32.
Plus 24. So that's plus a lot.
56.
Plus 56. Yeah. Plus
and
math.
Mavericks are +56 in his 240 minutes so far. So that's pretty damn good.
Yeah. Yep.
That's pretty good.
Yep. All right. So I don't really got anything else from this game. Do you?
Kyrie good.
Very good.
Something that I like. I need to write about this because peeking behind the curtain, like 8 of my story ideas got nuked.
Yep.
when Luka got traded that I was going to write about.
Happen.
But one thing that I can write about is Kyrie is like really good in the post, and he had another, I think maybe 1 or 2 post.
I love his duck in post ups.
Yeah,
he scored one. I think it put the Mavericks up 102-94, and
against Alvarado.
Ooh, yes,
he's so good at post ups. He might be the best post up guard in the game right now. I mean, it's his foot, and again, it's the footwork. It's the stuff that makes him good. His footwork and his skill. He applies that into the post where you need good footwork and you need skill, and you need timing and you need rhythm. And it's like, oh yeah, all the stuff that Kyrie is awesome at. So he's awesome in the post. That's something to watch. Like just watch every game. He posts up at least once or twice a game, and it usually leads to points. Either he's scoring, he gets fouled, or kicks it out, and someone's getting a good look. And then the other thing, probably before we go, is Najee had a really good game, had a really huge second half. He's shooting like 52% on floaters, or not specifically floaters, but those that shot range. That's crazy, man. That's such a good weapon for this team. Every time he shoots a shot in the paint, it feels automatic.
Yep.
So he was very good.
Well, before we go, I think we do got to talk about a couple of news items that I think are of note. The first would be that, the Victor Wembanyama news came out that he has deep vein thrombosis, and the Spurs are one of those teams. If you take a look at the at kind of the NBA standings right now, the Spurs still hoped to make a run for a play-in spot. You know, they're 24-30. They're four games out behind the Warriors to be like 10th in the West.
And
They're
they
effectively
traded for De'Aaron Fox too. So.
Yep. And they're effectively going to fade. The Mavericks have 2 games against them coming up in March. So that's just sort of something that I thought at least worth mentioning to the team. The other thing is that that very same day, the Mavericks came out with news that AD is progressing nicely in his recovery, which I don't like, not to be a shit, but what does that mean? Like his recovery means like he can't do anything. He like he's recovering and sitting there. Like there's nothing to, I don't, the PR game annoys me. But then they also said that they hope to have a report on both he, Gafford, and Lively by March 6th. And I think March 6th is an interesting place because they play 6 games after now, between now and March 6th. And we should have a pretty good idea of where the Mavericks sit in the Western Conference playoff race. Like, are the Suns still competing? Is there anybody else that's sort of fading away? I mean, I think right now with 25 games to go, you can kind of lock the Mavericks in for a play-in and above game. But weird things can happen. Like, again, the Mavericks have won 5 out of 6 without anyone playing more than a few minutes a game that's taller than 6'8".
Yep.
That's just going to go away.
You keep waiting for the balloon to pop on their shooting because they are just they are on a heater. Like
that's not to and keep in mind that's not to discredit anything. I mean, the last time the Mavericks were 5 games above 500 was early January. Like what they're doing right now is impressive.
Very impressive. Yes.
Excuse me. I should have muted myself. I also, and guys, and Josh doesn't want to do this. Like, no, he doesn't want to do this, but I'm going to bring it up anyways.
Oh, you bastard. I know what
we just kind of got to continue, you know, we do post-game, we do game coverage. We also touch upon news. And when it comes to it, we do talk about the narratives that surround the Mavericks. But by and large, you're coming into this podcast because you want to talk about the basketball. And we want to talk about the basketball. I do like to get angry. But I will say that the Mavericks, Luka Doncic, Anthony Davis trade, we are now on 3 weeks of news cycles from this fucking trade. And the Mavericks keep making news on their side of it. Okay? I desperately need this amateur hour clown show of an organization to take a crisis PR class and shut the fuck up. Every day, it's something new. This morning, there was an ESPN story, a lengthy ESPN story that essentially recapped how mad Mavs fans are. There was nothing new in it to me. I wouldn't have addressed it if that was the only news of the day. It was, you know, it talked about how Mavs employees are pretty pissed off at the executives, which, yeah, if I was a front-end employee on the Mavericks and I had to deal with getting yelled at by fans and strangers all day, wouldn't be very happy. But, you know, it's not surprising. Like, that's just sort of, it's not like it was not rage bait. It was a good story, but it's not something I think we would have really talked about. Do you?
No, because it was, I mean, we've been talking about it for like 2 weeks. People are mad. Like that's kind of what the story was about.
Yes, and we really, like, honestly, I wouldn't have even considered it something. We just kind of would have moved along. Then, like, there are 2 more things that happened today, guys. 2 more things. The second thing that happened was the Mavericks put out a social media video, a music video that was clearly made by a Mavericks fan of the team in concert with the Mavericks video team. Like they're media employees.
The artist came out. I'm kind of getting ahead of the story, but he had to release a statement about an hour ago because that's how bad it got. I guess for his group, and he said his team made the video, so the Mavericks did not make the video.
Which I don't really care.
Shared it. Yeah.
I don't really care because 2 Mavericks employees. Which, guys, this is what I mean by a PR class. A former Mavericks employee and a current Mavericks employee got pissed at fans online for their reaction to the fact that the video had taken out the traded Mavericks, all of them. One former Mavericks, he's a friend of ours, Bobby Corrala, basically said that, like, this is standard business practice to remove players from stuff. Don't really buy it. I'd never noticed it before, and I've been a Mavericks fan for a long time. But it looked like a South Park joke.
It was so weird because I'm not trying to dismiss the validity of, like, there are probably rules about it. Like, I'm not trying to say that's,
but it looked like a parody.
But yeah, like the way that they went about it, I was just like, man, that, like the way that they just silhouetted everyone and put big Mavericks logos over the.
It was so funny.
It just looks so weird.
I'm using those stills for the rest of my life. Like the stills were so funny. Okay, someone made a call because someone in charge of the video process. So if the Mavericks didn't make the video, it was that artist's team. So someone on his team, they had to make a call. They're like, oh, we're going to release this video that we made because we're doing this contractual partnership with the Mavs obligation thing that we're doing. Someone had to make a call because we're like, oh crap, we got all these players in here that are traded and we can't do that. So someone had to make the call of, we either we re-edit the video and we take out the clips of players who are no longer on the team and we insert only clips that show the players that are currently on the roster. Which, by the way, they've played like 8 games since the trade. So, but also Luka didn't play. Luka didn't play since December on.
Right.
There's plenty of non-Luka footage. Like that was asinine.
I know. So you either do that or you do what they did, which is also takes work to go in and edit the video so that you put these graphics over the traded players, and that's just I don't know. I'm not a video editor. I don't know if it was easier for them to go into the already done video and do that versus finding new clips to put in there.
I don't really care. At the end of the day, people need to get,
it looks
people need to get together and go, is this going to be something which we're going to be mercilessly dunked on? Like my favorite was the homie Mavs Reddit posted that clip from Monsters Inc. where Mike Wazowski is covered by the Monsters Inc. logo. That scene was in my head where he's like, Billy Crystal's character goes, I was on TV.
Right.
I was dying. Like the jokes surrounding this thing. Number 2, the second thing, the Mavericks absolutely need to make Mavs logo masks after this. Like when you do something stupid on a PR level, the main thing you need to do is lean into the curve. Like sometimes mistakes happen. The Mavericks are a small business. They really are, guys. And sometimes you fuck up and you just make stuff like things happen. It is what it is. I just that would have been enough. We would have had to have talked about this because
what's the other thing? Because I feel like that's the only other thing.
No, bud. Oh no, you missed the third thing. Dirk Nowitzki did an interview.
The Dirk thing. Okay.
And so this was the three-peat for the day. Dirk Nowitzki did an interview with The Ticket.
Yeah.
Here's his quote. This is the tough quote. It's a tough position for me to be in. I think I was as shocked and surprised as anyone was about the Luka trade. I really couldn't believe it. Dirk said he texted with Luka after the trade and then he felt bad for him. This is according to John Machota. I think that's how you say his name. He covers
The Athletic. Yeah.
He covers the Cowboys for The Athletic. This is another Dirk quote. He's a good kid. I felt I had to go out there, meaning to the Lakers game, and support him. I wanted to be there for him. It was surreal to see him play for the Lakers. At the end of the day, I'll never be a Lakers fan, but I'll always be a Luka fan. This was the one that I really wanted to talk about because everything else is weird. It's icing. It's like goofy stuff. It's social media. This Dirk thing penetrates. That Dirk thing will make the rounds. That will become news again. And again, 3 weeks in disaster class. I feel very strongly that not a single person has spoken to Dirk about this from the Mavericks, including his teammate Jason Kidd. Dirk looks like a guy who has been not, and granted, he's not with the team. Like Mark gave him some bullshit title and they trotted him out like a show pony to take bullets for all of Cuban's bad decisions for 2 years.
Yeah, I don't know. Like Dirk is totally cool chilling. Like that's also
he doesn't need to do anything. You know, he's Dirk. He has keys to the city till the end of time. But it stinks, man. It stinks to watch this. And it's like I will never really move on. I will never really move on. But I just gotta say, like, I don't want to talk about it every day. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. I'm kind of tired of talking about it too. I'm like, it's been like 3 weeks, and I'm not to dismiss saying like get over it. It's been 3 weeks. It's more just like I'm tired of there being something that makes us have to talk about it again. Yeah. And I think the big thing, you know, I did see that Dirk interview. I just forgot about it when you talked about it, but seeing Dirk talk about it, and then, you know, I don't know how many Mavs fans are watching, Mavs TV, the streaming service. I'm still using the NBA app. I'm not using the Mavericks app because the Mavericks app still doesn't work on my iPad. And then I haven't checked it again, but when you watch the Mavs through the Mavs app, when there's commercial breaks, they just put up a static image that says, "We'll be right back. Commercial, break in progress." And I just don't want a static image on my TV. And I like that when you watch on the NBA app, you'll get like old school NBA highlights occasionally, or you'll get like the in arena presentation, which is kind of fun. So I still watch on the NBA app. If the Mavs have changed it, I'll watch it there. But that's why I like watching on the NBA app. And they show a lot of Dirk highlights during Mavs commercial breaks on the NBA app. Mm-hmm. And like hearing Dirk's comments, I think he also had said something where he was like, I think he thought he was going to finish his career in Dallas like I did. Like, I think Dirk said something to that effect. I'm paraphrasing what he said tonight. So that combined with the fact that like, I'm still seeing clips of Dirk during commercial breaks and halftime of every game. Like, especially they show a lot of 2011 playoff finals run Dirk highlights. And it just made me realize there's a generation of Mavericks fans that were too young to know Dirk. Like they just were. Yeah. But Luka was going to be their Dirk. And I'm thinking about how much that moment meant to me in 2011, that journey of following him from beginning to the end. And there were Mavericks fans that grew up, and that's either their brothers, their sisters, uncles, aunts, grandparents, parents, that they talk, Dad, what was it like watching Dirk? Like, and I know that sounds crazy because we're not that old and it makes it sound like Dirk played 50 years ago. But if you're a 12-year-old, 13-year-old kid, you did not watch Dirk in his prime. You did not watch the 2011 finals run. If you're a 20-year-old kid, you might not have been too cognizant. Like, I didn't start paying attention to sports until I was in junior high. So there's a lot of young people that were like, didn't experience that. And maybe were like, man, I want that. And they got that, or they thought they did with Luka. And it's just another reminder that like for that swath of fans, that younger fan base, they're not going to get to experience it, because if you're a 20-year-old Mavs fan and they've traded Luka, like they're not getting another Luka. Like it could be decades. These fans that are 15, 18 years old, they could be 40 by the time this organization has another player
40,
as special as Luka. And then it's over,
Oh, Josh.
No, I know. They might never see it again.
Like statistically speaking, like there's some weird, like, I don't know, various people named Joe talking about Kobe in the comment. And I'm just like, I don't know what's happening here. But kind of no matter how you feel about Luka, let's just be broad and say you associate Luka as a top 10 NBA player. Okay. There are 30 teams, meaning only 10 teams have one of those players. getting a player, and Dirk is an interesting case because I'd be curious how many years out of Dirk's like kind of peak prime where people would actually place him, because Dirk was kind of caught up in the mire of the power forward era, where I think a lot of people just think he was a one-way player, et cetera, and maybe he was, but doesn't matter. He won a championship. The likelihood of going from Dirk to Luka was less than nothing. Like it is such an improbability. It's hard to contextualize. The likelihood that the Mavericks get a young player to play, like to start a career,
right,
the way Luka did is close to zero. Okay. And I get all these people are talking about him, and it's like, guys, I don't want to be mean to you guys in the comments, but like, I appreciate the people that are here, but find something else to do. If you're just going to be shits in our comments all the time, it's really boring. Like, it's not interesting. It is 10:53 on a Friday night, and you're in the comments of my YouTube talking about Kobe Bryant. Like, I don't care. Like, what? The likelihood of a player, of the Mavericks finding a under 25 player that is top 10 in the league is next to zero. Most players don't hit their peak until 25 to 28. So it's hard to explain to people, where it's like, even if the Mavericks were to get lucky in the lottery, which they never have, quite literally never have gotten lucky in the lottery, then they would need to be lucky in making the right pick in a draft. It would require the draft having those kind of players. It's very difficult. Right. And the Mavericks draft pick situation the next several years is bleak. It's bleak.
They're not getting another crack at that apple.
It's not. We are, and guy, Luca, Kai, we already talked about the game for 35 minutes. So welcome to the show. I love when people tell us what to talk about on our own show, as we, it's, again, like, you chose to come here and then you tell me what to talk about. It doesn't work for me. I just want these guys from a PR perspective to stop it. Like, they've won 5 of 6.
Yeah, should be the story.
They have a stew going. Okay. That should be the story. And it's just not, because every day someone somewhere makes a mistake. Like, I could not believe a current and a former Mavs person were out there arguing on the social media about this. Like, go into lockdown, ignore what the fans say. The reason we've not seen anything else in the arena is why? Because the Mavericks are winning. We want to talk about the winning. I don't want to talk about Dirk. I want to talk about the team. I want to talk about the basketball. I want to talk about the potential draft pick the Mavericks have this year. Like, there's lots of stuff we could talk about. It's not that I never want to talk about the trade again. It's just I don't want to talk about it every show. And I think that's fair. I think even our commenters would agree with that.
No, I think that's fair. And hopefully I'm not jinxing it, but I don't, like, what else can they do now? Like, is there anything else that they could do to step on another rake like Sideshow Bob? Like, hopefully, like, the Dirk thing happened. Like, that was, they couldn't avoid that because this was something booked months ago, like long time ago. So that was just unlucky timing for the Mavericks that Dirk happened to be speaking tonight publicly, because otherwise he would not have talked to, he's not doing interviews a lot. So
sure,
that was just kind of bad, unfortunate luck for them. So presumably there's nothing else left for them to do to put their foot in their mouths going forward. But we'll see what fresh hell awaits us tomorrow morning. But hopefully they can get through the rest of the month without another incident that pisses everyone off.
Yep. Well, I'm gonna go. I would host a secondary show, but my entire household has flu. So I don't really want to get it out. I should probably go to bed. We have some interesting scheduling stuff coming up. A 2:30 Sunday game. Don't know who I'll record with after. Then a 9 p.m. local time Dallas area game against the Lakers. That'll be fun. Even though the Mavericks are small, These next two are pretty winnable. The first game, like the only game that I'm really like outright concerned about are the two Milwaukee games. like Giannis,
what Giannis is going to do.
Giannis Antetokounmpo is going to have like 125 points.
Yeah.
It's good stuff. It's good stuff. All right, guys. Thank you all for hanging out. I do appreciate the folks that come and listen to the show live. I need like there's 3 people in here, like this guy here. I need you to stop copying and pasting your comments is what I really need. Like that's just like behave like you're a person. That's the thing I always tell people. It's like I occasionally lose my patience. I'm occasionally an asshole. But like we're all people. None of us made these choices. So can we not lose our minds with one another? Okay? All right. Everybody be good. Kirk Anderson and Josh Bowe. Check out Mavs Moneyball. We'll talk soon. Thanks so much for your time. Go Mavs.